Have you ever caught yourself speaking out loud in an empty room, only to suddenly freeze, feeling like you've caught yourself doing something illegal? If you watch until the end of this video, you will realize that your greatest fear of being crazy is actually the most sophisticated survival mechanism your mind has ever developed. Most people ignore this voice until it turns into a prison. But today, I will show you how to turn it back into your greatest ally. We live in a world where attention is a currency and silence is a threat. You are constantly performing, scrolling, and curating a version of yourself for a crowd that doesn't truly care. But in those quiet moments, when the blue light of your phone fades, a whispered sentence slips out while you're washing your face. A half-finished thought is spoken directly into the bathroom mirror. It is the kind of private moment you would never tell anyone about, because society has taught you to label it as instability. But let's be honest with each other. That voice isn't a sign that you are losing your mind. It is the part of you that has lived every single second of your existence, but rarely gets a chance to speak. It is the child who learned to stay quiet so as not to bother the adults. It is the teenager who swallowed their anger because it was too much for the world to handle. Talking to yourself is not madness. It is the mind attempting to reunite with its original self. Think about the times you argue with someone in your head long after they've left the room. Think about the rehearsals you perform before entering a social gathering. When the world feels too sharp and aggressive to touch directly, your internal dialogue becomes your armor. It is a survival strategy that has been with you since the very beginning. To understand why this feels so natural and yet so shameful, we have to go back to when your voice first learned to speak. Watch a child playing alone in the year 2025. They narrate every movement, voicing every small feeling and every imagined world. For a child, the spoken word is a bridge, a way to translate overwhelming emotions into something they can finally understand. When the world feels too big, the voice becomes an anchor. But as we grow up, society demands that we burn that bridge. We are told to keep the noise inside, to manage our feelings discreetly, and to perform normalcy at all costs. Some of us grew up in homes where love was a performance based on high scores. Some grew up with parents who were physically present, but emotionally 1,000 miles away. In those fragile environments, you learned early on that your feelings were a liability. So, you began to speak to yourself, not just for play, but as a form of survival. When no one asked how your day was, the inner voice did. When fear crept in at night, you whispered reassurance to your own soul. This is how your inner companion was born. It is the result of a heart that refused to collapse and a soul that would not let itself disappear. But as the years pass, the toys fade and the imaginary worlds dissolve. The voice remains, but it is no longer innocent. It becomes layered with memory, longing, and all the things you were never allowed to say to anyone else. By the year 2008, maybe you had already mastered the art of appearing perfectly composed while a storm raged inside. You know how to nod at the right time. You know how to hold your expression steady even when your chest feels like it's collapsing. But that voice didn't die. It just learned to hide behind the mask you wear for the world. You notice it most when the day has exhausted you and the silence of the night feels heavier than the darkness. You speak softly, privately rehearsing the courage you wish you had in the moment you actually needed it. Psychologically, this isn't just one voice. It is a collective. There is the narrator, giving shape to your existence. There is the shadow, holding your unspoken grief and unresolved anger. And there is the inner parent, trying to soothe you or scolding you for not being perfect. These are not separate personalities. They are the fragments of your own self that you had to separate just to make it through the day. The world sees an adult performing a normal life, but inside, you are still negotiating with the child who learned to hold everything alone. There is a profound resilience in this. The voice inside you is proof that you never truly abandoned yourself. Even when everyone else did, while your social media profile may be polished and well-adjusted, the voice behind the screen is raw, real, and trying to pull you back into alignment. Why do thoughts feel so much heavier when they stay silent? Why does a problem seem tangled and dense inside your skull? But the moment you speak it aloud to no one, something begins to loosen. The mind is not just a place of logic. It is a place of echo and sound. Speaking to yourself is one of the oldest ways the human brain organizes reality. In the world of science, we call this self-directed speech. Lev Vygotsky, a pioneer in psychology, observed that we first speak aloud to guide ourselves through the world. Society eventually teaches us to internalize that voice. But the mechanism never breaks. Neuroscience tells us that talking to yourself bridges the gap between emotion and interpretation. When you speak, your analytical left brain and your intuitive right brain begin to communicate more clearly. It is your nervous system reaching for balance in the dark. Studies prove that self-talk drastically improves emotional regulation. Hearing your own voice slows down the nervous system and lowers cortisol levels. It helps your prefrontal cortex regain control from the amygdala, the part of the brain that reacts purely out of fear. This is why, in a crisis, you whisper, "It's okay." You are literally hacking your own biology to survive. Your voice is a marker, a symbol carved into the wood of your life so you can find your way home. But beneath the biology lies something more fragile. Your inner dialogue reveals the pieces of you that learn to survive without ever being seen. It knows the disappointments you dismissed to keep the peace. It knows the apologies you never received and the grief you never allowed yourself to fully feel. That voice is a witness. It has seen every version of you that the world was never allowed to meet. There are nights when you speak into the quiet, as if someone were sitting right beside you. It's not loud. It's just a tired confession. "I'm trying." You say, "I don't know what else to do." In those moments, you aren't talking to the air. You are speaking to the only presence that has stayed consistently through every heartbreak. Psychologists say unresolved emotions don't disappear. They sink. They settle. And they wait. Shame becomes a shadow that follows you. Loneliness becomes a subtle ache in your ribs. Grief becomes a room in the house of your mind that you are too afraid to enter. When these feelings have no place to go, they look for the only person safe enough to hear them. You. The voice becomes your confessor, your listener, and your invisible companion. It is a mirror that reflects not who you pretend to be, but who you are when the performance finally ends. There is pain in this admission. Speaking to yourself often means admitting that you were alone when you shouldn't have been. It means acknowledging the moments when you desperately needed someone to say, "I see you," and no one did. Your internal voice took the place of the love that never came. It became your replacement for intimacy. It carries the weight of everything you've held in silence for decades. Society hears self-talk and thinks of madness. It doesn't see the endurance. It doesn't see the courage of the child who learned to survive in an empty house. We live in a culture that praises loudness and constant display. In such a world, solitude is mistaken for sadness. Solitude is treated like a problem that needs to be fixed with more consumption and more noise. From a young age, you were taught that thinking should stay inside and feeling should be managed discreetly. People don't fear your words. They fear the honesty behind them. Talking to yourself is raw and unfiltered. It reveals a world that cannot be curated for an algorithm. Society calls it strange because it reminds them of their own unspoken thoughts. the ones they spend their entire lives trying to outrun. They label you to distance themselves from their own discomfort. They call you lonely, as if companionship must always come from the outside. They call you unstable, as if sanity is measured by silence. And yet, history tells a different story. Some of the greatest minds to ever walk the earth spoke to themselves. Philosophers, poets, and warriors understood that the deepest transformation happens in conversation with the self. The inward voice has always been sacred. Modern culture has tried to turn it into something embarrassing, because modern culture worships distraction. It tells you that if you are not posting, proving, or displaying yourself, then you do not exist. It tells you to replace introspection with consumption, and in doing so, it disconnects you from the only relationship that will last your entire life. There is a cost to living with a voice that no one else hears. It is a slow erosion of the part of you that remembers who you truly are beneath the expectations. Have you ever felt like your own mind has become both your refuge and your prison? The only place you can be honest is inside. Yet that is also where your doubts echo the loudest. This is where your past and your present collide. There are moments when the voice is gentle. It reminds you to breathe, to soften your shoulders, and to try again tomorrow. In those moments, your chest is a sanctuary. It is proof that you have never truly abandoned yourself. But there are also nights when that same voice turns sharp. It becomes the echo of every person who ever made you feel small. It replays your mistakes like a film loop that refuses to fade. Over time, this shapes how you relate to the world. When you rely only on your own voice for comfort, other people can begin to feel unnecessary or even unsafe. You may hesitate to explain yourself because the voice already understands. You may withdraw behind walls made of your own thoughts, walls that you eventually struggle to climb out of. Intimacy is learned through being seen. But if the world never saw you, the voice became the stand-in for love. This affects your very identity. You begin to question who you are outside the realm of your inner world. You might fear vulnerability because letting someone else in means risking the only stability you have ever known. But this story does not have to end in tragedy. The same voice that carried your loneliness can also guide you back to the light. If you learn to listen with compassion instead of fear, the voice stops being a battlefield. It becomes a bridge. Healing begins the moment you stop treating the voice as a problem and start treating it as a message. The next time you hear yourself whisper in the quiet, listen with curiosity. Ask yourself, who is speaking right now? Is it the child who felt alone in 2005? Is it the adult who is exhausted from carrying the weight of the world? The voice is not random noise. It is memory shaped into language. Psychologists call this inner reparenting. It is the act of giving yourself the emotional presence you lacked when you were younger. When you say, "It's okay" to yourself, you are stepping into the role of the protector you always wished you had. You are repairing the bond between your past and your present. You are becoming the one who stays. You are learning to guide the voice rather than just reacting to it. When fear rises and the voice trembles, speak back softly. I hear you. When doubt sharpens into criticism, respond with steadiness. I am trying. This is not delusion. This is self-compassion. It is the emotional oxygen mask that every human needs but few are taught how to wear. Writing your thoughts down can also give this voice a physical shape. It allows the intangible to become visible. When you place your thoughts on a page, the chaos becomes a landscape you can finally navigate. You no longer drown in the feeling. You walk through it. You map it. You understand its origin. The page becomes a mirror that does not judge. Slowly, the internal struggle shifts into a productive dialogue. You stop running from yourself. You stop fearing the deep. The voice that once felt like a burden becomes a loyal companion. That voice has witnessed every quiet heartbreak you've ever endured. It remembers the ones that left no visible bruises, but changed your DNA forever. It remembers the first time you realized the world wasn't always gentle, and through all of it, it stayed. It spoke. It kept you company in the places where no one else was allowed to enter. Your inner voice is not a flaw. It is a living archive of your survival. When you speak to yourself today, you are tending to the child you once were. You are acknowledging the teenager who felt too much. You are giving language to the experiences that shaped you in the heavy silence of the past. Sometimes the voice carries anger, and sometimes it echoes regret, but even that is a form of hidden love. Pain only speaks when it is finally ready to be healed. Your inner voice is not trying to control you. It is trying to reach you. It wants you to notice the places where you are still hurting, and to recognize the incredible strength you built all on your own. It wants you to understand that even in your loneliest hours, you never actually walked alone. You were always there, watching over yourself. So, the next time you find yourself whispering in an empty room, do not rush to silence it. Do not feel ashamed or call yourself strange. Listen. Really listen. You are hearing the raw truth of your own existence. If you speak to yourself, it is because a part of you is still fighting to be heard. It is because a part of you is still in the process of healing. There is nothing crazy about returning to the person you were before the world told you who to be. You have been your own witness, your own comfort, and your own home. You aren't just talking to yourself. You are finally returning to yourself. Welcome home.